Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 103 of the Magic Beans podcast. My name is Cracker, and I will be your host, and I hope you're doing very well. Along the line with me today, I have just one bean, and it is Chewy. How you doing, mate?
I'm well, mate. How are you?
Good. It's been a little while since I've been on the show. I had to try and remember what to do. I felt a little bit left out last week when I was listening to you boys talking about all these fancy new mechanics and things, but
it was very weird hearing hear us talk about mechanics without, you. And look, Stu did a good job.
Stu did do a good job. He did very well.
But, Stu's not Cracker, and he'll be the first to admit that. So, yeah, we don't want to typecast you, but, everyone has a talent, and yours is reading band announcements and mechanics.
Well, I guess that keeps me employed for a long time. Then.
Exactly, yeah. Thanks, Wizards.
Yeah, appreciate it. All right, so a few things to talk about this week, like we always do. We've got a number of different topics that we want to get through. We want to have a chat about some of the more recent events that have been running, both ours and internationally. And then also we want to go through the Crimson Vow. We've got the rest of the cards previewed, and there's a few that have snagged our attention, so we thought we'd spend a bit of time just having a chat about some of those ones. But before we get into all of that, Chewy, would you mind telling the people here who our wonderful sponsors are?
Absolutely. Our sponsors, being the Magic Beans podcast and tournament series, are the fine folk at Josh and Pat's MTG Bazaar. They're a Facebook auction site with nightly auctions, like well over 100 cards every single night go up. So it's very fun just scrolling through that. So instead of doom scrolling Twitter, how about you scroll the Josh and Pat's auction page, place some bids, pick up some bargains, and when you do win, please tell them that the Beans sent you.
Awesome. Thank you, mate. So, as we said, we've got a few different things that have happened. Last weekend was the finals from our league. So, again, unfortunately, I feel like I've just been out of things with the Beans, mate. I wasn't involved in that one as well, but you guys did a great job. Big long cast, and was all taken down by one of our more recent entrants on Linden, running Is It Dragons.
Yeah, in the all Chewy finals, took out K-pop fanboy on Is It Turns, and it was a really diverse top 8. Like, we had 8 unique decks, but as is wont to happen in the standard metagame at the moment, it was a all blue-red final. And look, game 1 was a bit of a non-event, but then after that it got really intricate and interesting, and it came down to K-pop resolving a Leah and hoping to get a turn to go off with their Aaron's Epiphany combo, where they were about to chain together some number of extra turns, but it gave Linden a very slight window. There was just a sort of a crack in the window, and managed to eke out the win and take down. So found themselves the winner of the Midnight Hunt League, and more importantly, booked themselves a seat at the Envy table, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but it's kind of a big deal. So
sure is.
But it was some really good,
very exciting,
really good Magic played, some really cool decks, and the Discord was a buzz in the early part of last week, because everyone was like, Standard's a bit boring at the moment. There's mono white, and then there's like Gruul, and then there's like Is It decks.
Is It something?
Yeah, and some mono green. But there was a green white deck that we weren't super hyped about in our show last week. We were like, how does this do against this deck and that deck? But it had some really good matchups and went really deep, and a few people from the Discord were playing that, and I saw at least somebody spent an evening playing matches of that deck to 100% record. So pretty good. If you want to know what that deck is, join our Discord and jump in and pick up the list. But if someone can pick up the deck and day one pilot it to a undefeated record, I think it was like 9-0 in matches, worth doing. So pretty good. So well done to all of our competitors. Everybody, I think, had a good time. We had a great stream. Lots of people in chat. We gave away some collector boosters, which was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
There were 2 Ren and 7s open, 1 foil, 1 extended art. So pretty gas, really.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. All you have to do is join in the stream and hang out, and then, hey, look at this.
I don't know if you caught much of the stream because I know you're busy house hunting, but we actually gave away an OG in Australia pack for the best dad joke. So I had a lot of fun with that. It was good. And I got a lot of new material, so I know you are definitely looking forward to hearing all of my new, to me, dad jokes. So, yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah, okay. It's great. So congrats to Lyndon, and looking forward to covering you at the Invie as well. So, yeah.
Yeah.
What else is going on?
So before we get to the Invie, there's a couple of other things that are happening. We've got another part of the Red Bull Untapped event. So these have been running for a while now, actually. They've been doing, pretty consistently putting these events on. And they've got another one coming up. I'm sure if you kind of know a little bit about those, then it's it's an arena-only event. And, yeah, it's coming up pretty soon, which is pretty cool.
Actually kicks off this weekend. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, look, the timing is pretty good, actually, because they've given a few different regions. So there's like a mountain time and a Japan time and a European time and a Central Western European time. So there's a bunch of different kind of opportunities to get in, which is nice because you quite often have, times like for example, the mountain time one, which is obviously an American one, starts at like Sunday 3 a.m. our time. It's got 1,491 players enrolled, but there's other ones where you can do it, and it's like the Japan time starts at 12 p.m. So there's a bunch of different options there, which is pretty good to let us actually get in on those. So they're all on different weekends. There's the one coming up this weekend, then they're on the 20th and the 27th, and then on the 5th of December. So they kind of stagger them out, so they're not all run on the same weekend. But if that's the sort of thing you're interested in, then they're free to play and they've got some good prizes. So jump on, check it out.
Awesome. And also starting this month on the 20th of November is the ESL second season of their Magic Tournament series. So the first series was a bit of a learning event for them, and I think they've ironed out a few kinks. So I think they're going to run things much more smoothly. So if you haven't jumped in, or if you did play in the first one, then can recommend jumping in and playing in that. Some local, Australia / Oceania, or tournament organisation. So if you build it, they will come. So get in and register for that and sign up. They've got a series of events, and I think there's like a $5,000 kitty or something. So absolutely recommend signing up and getting involved in that.
Yeah, for sure. And just looking at that one, they've currently got 13 players registered for the upcoming one on the 20th.
That's a pretty high EV.
I was going to say, your EV is pretty high there. I think, from memory, you've got to win through a couple of different ways. So you win through on a Saturday, and then you play again on a Sunday, and then, there's some prizes or points allocated there which get you into later events. So, it's a full kind of series. There's not a lot that you get from winning straight up. You just get points to give you a chance to enter in later. But look, we love the fact that they're Australia, New Zealand, right? It's our neck of the woods, and it's just for us, and it's pretty sweet to have access to this kind of thing. So
absolutely.
Jump in and give it some support.
Yeah, if the numbers are low,
and they're getting better.
Yeah, exactly. If the numbers are low, then make sure you get in, because it's we want to get those numbers up, because we want people to keep hosting events in this region. But if they are low, then, like I said, pretty good EV. Speaking of events, I was pretty excited. I saw an email come through on the Beans email address earlier in the week. You've signed us up for a thing.
I have, yeah. So we got in touch with Matcherino, which we thought was a fantastic name.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, but sign us up based on the name, right?
So it's Wizards' new... it's a company that Wizards have partnered with for scheduling and running events. So we use Challenge a lot at the moment for running all of our leagues. And this is now, it's not going to be a replacement. It's something that we're going to look to use in conjunction with it. I don't think it's going to do exactly what Challenge does as far as letting us run the round robin side of things for our leagues, but certainly for some of the historic one-day events and other things where we have a much more structured kind of setup, we may look at running some of those events on there. So running things on Match Arena, some people may remember Krogies was going to do sort of the big first event on them for the actual like release weekend of Midnight Hunt, and it all sadly fell in a big hole and the tournament got cancelled. But I believe they've done a bunch of work on it since then, and it gives us the chance to potentially get access to being able to offer gems and some prizes directly in the arena client. So we're definitely going to start having a look at seeing how this can be another tool for us to use, and it's good that we're starting to get more and more options around how we want to run things. Like when we started the leagues 18 months ago, there was no choices.
Well, we ran the first couple of events on a spreadsheet, right? So
we did. Yep.
So having these tools is great, and it ensures equity. Maybe not more than a spreadsheet. It ensures equity, and if this is a pathway to some sort of wizard support with gems and things like that, that's great. So post Envy and before Christmas, we'll have a look at potentially doing like a litmus test, an experimental trial with a Beans one-day event. Don't know any of the details, don't know any of the dates, but something we're kind of just checking calendars and discussing internally and hoping to set something up post Envy. So watch this space, I guess.
Yep, absolutely. We will have things in the upcoming events inside of Discord. So yeah, we'll definitely make sure that everyone knows well in advance before we get things going. So what else do we have to talk about here? What's next on the list? Do we want to talk about the Envy?
Let's just wrap that up at the end. Let's get into the preview. People are here to hear our thoughts on
new cards.
on the new cards, right? They want to know. They're like, I'm thinking about building this deck, and I want to know what Chewy and Cracker think before I commit to my wild cards, because that's
okay.
That's how that's an outright lie. It is, but
that is an excellent piece of advice if you want to waste a bunch of wildcards. And I don't know about you, mate, but I'm in that wonderful position where you go, yep, plenty of uncommons, plenty of commons, got a few mythics. I've got like 5 rare wildcards.
I think that's just my default setting, really.
Yeah, it's true.
And I'm at the point now where I probably need to buy some gems. I haven't done it for about a year. So, yeah. So I've got Arena to the point now that's costing me about $50 a year, which is pretty good. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Get a bit of fun out of it. So yeah, I thought we could just have a look at a couple of different sort of subtopics when we talk about Crimson Vow, which
sure.
It's a week away, or does it come out tomorrow? I can't remember.
No, it's tomorrow.
It is tomorrow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's probably live by the time people are listening to this.
Fantastic. All right. Well, there's a bunch of reprints in this set, and I haven't pulled out all of them, but I thought we'd just quickly discuss the ones that kind of jump out as something that might have a bit of an impact, or just cards that are worth knowing that they exist. And then I think we've each got a little bit of a list of cards that we think might make a little bit of an impact on standard or even some older formats, right? So now if Polywaffle was here, I would throw to him at this point, because I know he has cast this card more than more than the rest of us combined, really.
Easily.
Yeah. So Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. So for those who have who've never played Modern, I guess, Thalia is a legendary creature, human soldier, cost 1 and a white, 2/1 first strike. Non-creature spells cost 1 generic mana more to cast, and she's at rare. And pretty cool art, a lot darker art than previous printings. And are you noticing, if you look at the art, the window behind it's got the hands.
Yeah, it's got a bunch of zombies in the stained glass.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It is.
So Thalia is a very powerful card, and sees modern play, and sees playing Legacy, Death and Taxes, and now I don't think Thalia is going to have an enormous impact on Standard as far as it's not going to make the mono white deck the outright best deck or anything, but the fact that a shell exists currently that she can slot into, and there is a deck in the Is It Turns deck that she is good against, I think she's just going to see play. I think she just slots in there as a 2, maybe a 3 of, at absolute worst case sideboard, but I think the first strike and the other 2-drop that puts +1 counters on stuff, whose name escapes me. I think she's good enough to just main deck in that deck, and just have a 3-power, 4-power first striker, and that just taxes those spells deck and just buys you a turn, or they might have to take a turn off to hit Thalia with their Thundering Rebuke or something. And she's kind of done her job at that point. So it's not like Windmill Slam, Aaron's Epiphany decks are dead, but she's certainly a very good card that might just move the needle back away from that deck being, the outright best deck in the format. It doesn't make the white deck the best deck, but it just brings just a notch, I think, brings the Epiphany deck back a notch.
Yeah, I agree. It's just, the Epiphany decks will just start playing 4 Spikefield Hazards, right? Like, it's just, they just change their construction a little bit, but they don't really have to adjust too much.
But that's
like
a cost.
I said,
That's
it's
a cost.
not the sort of thing.
That's a land that comes into play tapped.
It's a very minor cost.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's 0. I'm not saying it's nothing, but I agree completely with what you're saying. Yes, it definitely impacts, but it's not like a 4 of.
It's not the panacea to the format. I'm not saying that, but I think it's a good card to have in the current format to keep that.
Yeah, look, really happy to see it. And, this is the first time we've seen this version of Thalia printed since original Innistrad, right? Like, this is her first ever reprint. So she's appeared in Standard, that is. We've seen her in Modern Horizons or whatever it was previously, or, some of those other supplementary sets with, different art versions. But yeah, this is her first foray back into Standard, which is cool. I think it's, she's, pretty iconic as far as this, plane goes. So it's pretty cool to see her back again.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I like it. And I think she's, she's going to find... There's already a home for her. I think she's just... Be it in small numbers or in the sideboard, that deck will definitely play Thalia.
Yep.
Speaking of that deck, or perhaps even a more controlling style deck that happens to play Plains, Valorous Stance is an uncommon in this set, which is a reprint, which is 1 and a white for an instant, choose 1. Target creature gains indestructible, or destroy target creature with toughness 4 or greater. And you kind of look at those and you go like, oh yeah, like I might play one of those in my draft deck. But this card was actually quite good in Standard last time. And
it was, yeah.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of targets for it. There's Old Growth Trolls, there's a certain dragon. There's, things that grow, with getting +1 counters on them or equipment and things like that.
There's the Seeker's Chariots and all kinds of things.
Exactly. So this card's pretty flexible. And yeah, I think this is just, I don't know if it's going to make a huge splash, but I can see me getting blown out by this card on multiple occasions. So,
sure.
So I think this is going to be a presence in the format. Someone's going to, I'm going to target someone's Seeker's Chariot with this, and they're going to make their Seeker's Chariot indestructible by casting their own Valorous Stance, and I'm going to feel bad about it. But it's a good combat.
They get a free attack.
Yeah.
Because it's indestructible until end of turn.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, it doesn't feel good. Yeah, it's a sort of thing where you play like 1 or 2 in the main and then a couple more on the board. And, you're generally pretty happy about it. It's flexible enough and cheap enough, right? Like, the fact that it's only 2 mana is pretty good. I mean, it is obviously the downside of going Thalia into this, but, like you said, you're hopefully interacting enough with your opponent that you can keep applying things with, like elite spellbinders and those kinds of things instead to pressure your opponents with creatures instead. So
yeah, actually, I didn't mention that, but the curve of Thalia into elite spellbinder is some pretty good disruption.
Sure is.
Yeah, so it's that's not a bad curve to have at all, especially if you've managed to find a 1-drop or something. You can really get the beatdown happening. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What have you got? What have you got in your little list?
So the next one on the list here is Syncopate, which is a card we've seen a number of times, and it's a pretty good one to have back in Standard.
I like this card.
It's blue and X, and it says counter target spell unless its controller pays X. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. So it's better than Jwari Disruption. I think is kind of the where I see it slotting in. It can be the same thing where it's not quite a force spike, but like 2 mana, counter target spell unless your opponent pays 1, and it scales with you during the game. So people are not playing things later than they should. Everyone is playing really on the curve these days.
You have to. You've got to get onto the board, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, absolutely. But it's pretty unlikely that this card is just going to sit in your hand where you go, oh, they're going to tap out for a 2 mana spell on turn 8, and I've got to have 6 mana available to get them. It's like no. You just need 2 mana at any given point, and you can hit a 2-drop or a 6-drop or something like that. Like you're very likely to kind of have that window. So nice little one for the blue decks to pick up, and it's just the exile effects. I can't think of specifically how it's useful. I mean, flashback spells obviously is the one that jumps to mind now that I say I can't think of anything, but exiling spells instead of having them go to the graveyard, has definitely got some big upside. So there are a number of different ways that'll be useful. So
yeah, it's certainly not a downside anyway. So it's pretty good. Yeah,
absolutely.
All right,
not going to move the needle a bunch, and it will just kind of go where it needs to. But yeah, it'll be one you'll get got by that one too.
Yeah, absolutely, I will. I talked the other...
Not just the royal you, not just Chewy specifically will get blown out.
No, I as I said a few episodes now, I think it was episode 100, like I am inclined to go, well, you've either got it or you don't, right?
Yeah, make it matter.
So that means, the cost of that is you get blown out every now and then, so yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Another card that is entirely unexciting, but this is kind of the limited player in me, is Doom Dissenter. And it's 1 and a black for a 1/1 human, and when it dies, you create a 2/2 black zombie token. Now, there's a sacrifice deck that exists currently. There's a zombie deck that is, got a Lord in Midnight Hunt, and there's a bunch of blue zombies, and one in particular that we'll probably talk about a bit later. And this card didn't quite break into Standard, and I don't know if it will, but it's. I feel like it's closer than it's ever been, and yeah, honestly, I think if it's ever going to break into Standard, this might just be the time. I might be completely wrong. It may do nothing, but the tools like the card draw spell that makes a treasure when you sack something, and other benefits from sacrificing creatures exist, and this gives you 2 bodies and therefore 2 triggers, and it's a good defensive 2-drop if you want to do sort of black control-y things as well.
So the presence of exploit now, and also things like village rights and those kinds of things.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Some value from it means that it's a lot more than it appears as a 1/1 that turns into a 2/2. It's a 1/1 that draws 2 cards or whatever it does. So there's definitely some some shelves that I can see this one slotting into.
Yeah.
Whether it's like
Actually good enough, I don't know.
Dedicated. Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
So, but the good thing about this one is if you decide to pick them up, they are in the commons. So
Exactly right.
just draft them.
Yeah, and like solid draft deck. If you're playing a blue-black control strategy in draft, like a 2-drop that blocks twice.
2-drop that. Yeah,
it's pretty good
for sure.
Yeah. Speaking of good cards in draft.
Yeah, speaking of just good cards in general, we've got a downshifted card here, mate, in Hero's Downfall.
Yeah.
So Hero's Downfall is
Hero's Downshift?
1 black. Hero's. Oh, where's Shorty's soundboard? Actually, that wasn't too bad. Okay. Hero's Downfall is 1 black. For an instant, it says destroy target creature or planeswalker. And it's an uncommon. So last time we saw this was when we saw it in Original Theros.
Yep. And we saw a version of this more recently that cost you some life, but it could also come back as a 2/3 body.
Yes.
In the
Murderous Rada.
Yeah. But this is just like a solid removal spell. It was a really, really powerful card in Original Theros, but there was some pretty good planeswalkers running around at that time.
Yeah, there was like 6 mana Elspeth and a bunch of other stuff, so you were really trading on mana pretty well there.
Yeah.
But I mean, if my opponent casts a Lolth or a Ren and 7, and I have a Hero's Downfall in hand, I'm not sad about the exchange. Obviously you don't get to stop them from, making some spiders or, a tree folk token or what have you. But it's still a pretty clean exchange as far as mana. So that's not a bad spot to be.
I kind of agree and I kind of disagree. Like, if I kill their Ren and 7, but they've still got like a 5/5 token, I feel pretty bad. I can see more situations where I would destroy the tree folk and then attack the planeswalker down. But yeah, I think this is as the format stands right now, like on the day that Crimson Vow goes live, I don't know if this has a real home, but as the format evolves, and particularly, in a year's time or whenever it is that we see some sort of rotation, I can see this definitely becoming more prevalent and more powerful. But right now, my black-based control decks are not going to play 4 of these when there's things like, there's 2 mana.
But there is no black-based control deck at the moment. And I think that's really interesting. I was listening to another podcast and they were like, black is basically absent from the format. And I went, no, it's not. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Like if you stop and think about it, black there's no mono black control. It is a slight supporting color, but it is not.
Wasn't there 2 copies of blue black control in the top 8 of the SCG event the other week though? I think a deck exists. I just don't think it's overly popular. But I think when people are trying to just go, is it turns constantly?
Sure.
Counter spells and discard, but this card doesn't quite fit into that in the main deck at least either. So,
I think it does. I mean, you're not trying to beat Is It Spells with this, but there's so many like powerful creatures running around that you just need it as like just a clean,
Yeah, it's a good card. It's a good card. My concern is it just it doesn't have a home that just like where it's just an obvious.
I agree. Yeah, because there's no good black control deck at the moment.
Yeah. But I think there is. That's what I'm saying. Like it put 2 copies into the top 8 of the SCG event. So, but I just don't think it's. I think it's good. I don't think that deck is popular though, which is I guess that means that it doesn't exist because it's not popular.
Kind of.
Yeah. If we're looking at it through that lens, so maybe play blue back control and jump into a Discord and let us know how you go with it. So yeah.
And the good thing about this one only costs you uncommon wildcards, not rares like it was. So I really like that as a downshift. I think that's actually pretty good.
Speaking of downshift, what about just spending a common on a braid?
Yeah, a braid.
Yeah. Unsold on the art. I think the art looks like it could be good, but don't like the background there. I like the concept, don't like the execution. But a braid is 1 and a red instant, choose 1, 3 damage to target creature or destroy target artifact. Now, this is a card that has definitely got some targets. And the Izzet decks that don't play the dragons are going to want this, right? The Izzet turns decks, because it kills a 3/3 werewolf and it kills a chariot.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're playing the Scorching Dragonfire without Goldspan Dragon in your deck, then I think a Braid is just an upgrade.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think this is just a really good card to have, in sideboards of red decks and such. Is a Braid in Historic already?
Yes, it was in Amonkhet Remastered.
Yeah, it is too. Yep. Okay. Now legally in Pauper, interestingly as well.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah. So it's just a really versatile, really powerful card that sees play in modern sideboards. So and it's got good targets. And later on, maybe in the first part of next year, we get the Brothers' War. Mm-hmm. And I'm anticipating a whole bunch of artifacts. So this is a nice, So this is a nice plant ahead of that. So if you pick them up now, you're gonna spend one of your infinite common wild cards or 4 of your infinite common wild cards, and you're gonna get some use out of this, blowing up chariots now and then blowing up whatever Urza and Mishra throw around, in 5 or 6 months' time. So. Yeah, good card. Happy to have this one reprinted. Wouldn't be sad if this was the sort of thing that was just a regular presence in Standard, honestly.
Yeah, it's a pretty good card to have. Yeah, it's pretty much perma-legal. Yeah.
Yeah, and the last reprint that I wanted to talk about is Mulch. Mm-hmm. And so this card dates back to Stronghold, I think, or even further, potentially.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, so it's been around for a little while. Mulch is reveal the top 4 cards of your library, put all land cards revealed this way into your hand, and the rest into your graveyard. So I like the idea of putting things into my graveyard at various points. I don't know if you've ever, how much experience have you had with that, Cracker? A little?
Not much.
But yeah, this is just a good card. It finds your lands. It puts key pieces in your graveyard to do shenanigans, and finding land drops along the way to progress your game plan, both in land drops and graveyard fuel. So I think that's pretty good. And I don't know if it has a home, in a deck in Standard, but this is kind of just one of those ones that's just good to know that it exists, because future sets, if we get some synergies with that sort of thing, and the new Olivia reanimates a thing, so there's just a little germ of an idea there.
Yeah, it feels like there's the tools for a Golgari self-mill deck, but I just don't know what it is yet. And I don't know that there's the payoffs there for it, is the problem. So, if you look, there's actually a fair bit of, green and black, there's some creature synergies there where they, things come back from the graveyard, and then, there's things that, it's just, there's a few things here and there, but Wizards are pretty careful these days about not enabling broken graveyard synergies, because, they're broken. You can get away with some pretty ridiculous things. And so they're pretty careful about making sure that, those strategies are not super powerful. So,
but there is some synergies, and this is a pretty good segue to talk about one of the cards on your list here.
Sure.
So what if I'm grabbing a land to cast my reanimate spell off Mulch? What do I want to find on the top of my deck to be able to put in my graveyard?
So one of the ones that I like the look of in this set is called Hullbreaker Horror. It is 7 mana, so it's 5 blue. It is a rare. It's a 7/8. It's a creature. It's a Kraken horror. It looks like a lobster with 10 arms or something. It's pretty great.
It looks like it needs a lot of garlic and butter. That's all I can say.
Yum.
Yeah. Yeah.
It also says, Flash, this spell can't be countered. Whenever you cast a spell, choose up to 1. Return target spell you don't control to its owner's hand. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So there's a card called Tidespout Tyrant, which is... This draws a lot of similarities too. Tidespout Tyrant is actually like I'm pretty sure it's like a 6-mana 5/5, but you would sometimes play it in the sideboard of Legacy Reanimator, and you use it for bouncing people's lands mostly, which is pretty filthy because every instant or sorcery that you cast, any spell, can just bounce a permanent, is what it said. And you could bounce your own permanents as well. So it was like target permanent to its owner's hand. So the cool thing about the Hullbreaker Horror is that it's actually got return target spell you don't control. So that is effectively counterspell, right? It's just someone casts a spell, you're like, nope, back in your hand, away you go. So you don't even have to have, syncopate. Or you can have syncopate and no extra mana, you've just got a single blue, and you just get to put it back in their hand and then attack them with a 7/8. So
what I like about this is if you've got, say, an Abrade or a Hero's Downfall, and they go to cast a Ren and 7 or something big, you go, okay, in response I'm going to kill your other thing, and that is going to bounce the thing that kill the thing that's on board, and that's going to bounce the thing that's on the stack.
Yep.
Right?
It's pretty great.
So yeah, it's and then then you've got a 7/8, right? It's going to go a fair way to winning the game. I think this card's great, and if Tidespout Tyrant's out there in the ocean somewhere and it's got a pet, it's probably this thing.
Yeah.
And just like Master Splinter learning from his master the art of jiu-jitsu, Hullbreaker Horror is doing a pretty good mimicking job of doing Tidespout Tyrant things. So,
and you can bounce it back to your own hand is an important thing. So there is a form of protection because it says return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So the first one is you can't loop your own spells. So you can't do, I guess they're trying to prevent you doing stupid multiple fork things. Right?
Oh, well,
in theory, you could Galvanic Iteration and then cast your Epiphany and then bounce your Iteration and still get the copy trigger and have 2 copies of Epiphany and all that.
And you could also just play 1 Mox in Vintage and have infinite mana. So,
sure.
Whenever you cast a spell. Oh, no, it doesn't protect from that. It's not when it's, but yeah. So,
but you can, it doesn't have hexproof or anything like that, which you would quite often see in, like a blue control finishes, which is probably the shell that this is sort of thought for. And honestly, I don't know if this is going to see any play. It tickles my fancy as being an option here for some reanimation stuff.
Flash can't be counted. I would play 1 copy of this in my sideboard if I'm playing a control deck.
Yeah, I think so.
For the mirror. I think that's fine because, the game's going to go long. You're going to hit 7 mana. And if you've got this plus, some sort of instant speed interaction, you can bounce it. You can, you might counter their spell and bounce their Planeswalker or something like that. I think this is definitely a sticky enough and big enough and difficult enough threat to deal with to warrant a sideboard slot. And things like Nezahal and things like that have found their way into blue sideboards in standard, in recent years. So I think that's where it'll live. And then, if there's a reanimate or some sort of, trick a giant thing into play in, historic or pioneer, maybe not modern because you've got, Grizzlebrand and friends. It probably doesn't compete with those, but in the sort of more recent non-rotating formats, I think it's definitely one worthy of consideration.
Definitely. So what about yourself?
Way to discard it, actually. I just figured out this synergy in my mind is Thirst for Discovery. So the Thirst series, it's not a cycle because they're over different sets, but Thirst for Knowledge, Compulsive Research, Thirst for Meaning, all kind of similar effects. So it is this one is 2 and a blue for an instant. at uncommon, draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard a basic land card. So we've seen ones with that are, artifact enchantments or a land card in the sorcery version of Compulsive Research, which is kind of adjacent to this, even though it's a sorcery. And they're cards that, Thirst for Knowledge saw a bunch of play. Thirst for Meaning saw a little bit of play. Compulsive Research saw a lot of play. But this card seems pretty good. Like, blue decks are very good right now. Card advantage in the Blue Mirror is great. This is a cheap spell to cast on turn, 6 or 7, and then let you, cast more spells. It finds answers. It hits your land drops, that sort of thing. So, I think this card is good if it has a home. I will draft this. I will draft this a lot. Like in limited, this thing's amazing because you're playing high land counts. You're going to place, something like 16, 18 land in your limited deck. So, in the late game, on turn 3, great, smooths out your draw, that sort of thing. It's fine, but these cards aren't really designed to play on curve unless you're trying to put, something big into the graveyard and then reanimate it on turn 4. But yeah, these are pretty good. You've played a bunch of Delver, and that sort of fish style deck. Maybe as a 1 or 2 of in a deck like that, do you think, just as a way to filter away lands and get more spells?
It'd be worth a look for sure, because Memory Deluge is pretty great, but sometimes the 4 mana can be hard to get to. So, yeah, it'd be worth looking at. Look, I still don't think that Delver got a lot from this. I just don't think that it's actually like the right thing to be doing. You're kind of not disruptive enough or fast enough. But who knows? Maybe there's some options there. I was about to say, maybe you could play like Blue-White Delver with Thalia, and I just realised that's like the worst idea ever. So don't try and do that, people.
Nombo.
That is definitely that, right? A Nombo. Yeah. Turn 1 Delver. Turn 2 Thalia, flip my Delver. I mean, okay. Yeah. So this card is like unassuming, but yes,
a good card to just be aware of when you're building your decks.
Yeah, it's either velocity or unfair.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. So we talked about Doom Dissenter in our reprints.
We did
there, and we alluded to one of the cards on your list here, which has a bit of a synergy to it, right?
It does. In fact, if we cast our minds back to episode 100, we talked about what our invitational card would be, or if we won Worlds, and mine was, a stretch, but it was pretty close to this. So this is Overcharged Amalgam. It is 2 blue for a zombie horror. It is a 3/3 with flash, flying, and exploit. Exploit is when this creature enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a creature, which includes itself.
Yep.
And it says when Overcharged Amalgam exploits a creature, counter target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. So, at worst case, this is 4 mana, sack itself, counter target spell, which is, fine.
Or end of turn, make a 3/3 flyer to attack you.
Correct.
Is also that. So those 2 options are its flaw.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
but there's 2 options there, which tells me that this card's pretty gas.
Well,
because even at its worst, it's got flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely. It does a lot. It'll be one of those things where you won't be able to think of everything that it does until you see it either done to you, or you're like, oh wait, I can counter this Planeswalker activated ability. Cool.
This is the kind of card that makes me miss in paper events, because it would be like middle of the like end of the round, in between round stuff, and it'd be like, oh, how'd you go? And it was like, oh, dude, I just won the game in the coolest way.
Mm-hmm.
I had this Overcharged Amalgam, and this was a situation, and I did it, and I did this, and it was a complete blowout, and it was awesome. And people would be like, oh, sweet, didn't realize I could do that. Or probably more realistically be like, oh, my opponent had overcharged amalgam and they did this thing and I wasn't sure and I called a judge and they were right and I died. That's probably more realistic. But this card does so much it's never dead. That's the thing. Like so I guess this card is so good in so many situations. I'm trying to think of a time where it's bad. And I can't.
No.
Like a 4-mana counterspell in standard, fine. 4-mana 3/3 flyer, there are times where you need that because, you flash it in the control mirror and you just try to just beat them down. But yeah, I think this card's definitely on my shortlist for best cards in the set.
Yeah, it's definitely... It's a wrinkle, right? This one actually moves the needle a fair bit. And look, there's a pretty good argument that blue decks didn't need a lot of help at the moment. You won't hear me ever make that argument, but other people have been known to say that, blue decks don't need any assistance. But look, this is this is super versatile. And if you look at the other cards that we've been talking about so far, it's like Hero's Downfall, Abrade, Valorous Stance, it's these modal cards that really make them just more than the sum of their parts. And this is definitely the case for this one. So if you've got, like a zombie, and look, I hope that there's a blue-black zombie deck that comes out of this. It feels like we're pretty close now. It feels like we might have hit critical mass, and it'll take someone cleverer than me to build that deck. But if there is a zombie deck, then this is definitely like the top end of it. And, you're getting your Doom Dissenter and, killing a 1/1, or you getting a 2/2 and a 3/3, or, you're getting rid of your decayed tokens before they actually die at end of turn and all that sort of stuff. So I think that there's enough stuff that's lying around there that's just kind of value that you'll be able to make this one work pretty much anywhere.
Well, a card that I think would fit really well into that zombie deck that you were just talking about is Fell Stinger, which is 2 and a black for a 3/2 zombie scorpion. It has Death Touch and it has Exploit. Mm-hmm. So, yep, we talked about that. When it exploits a creature, target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. So you can Doom Dissenter on 2. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like a 3/2 Death Touch, I think I'd rather a 2/3, honestly, with Death Touch and have that extra point of toughness, but I'm not upset about this body. I think it attacks really well. It's going to trade up a lot of the time and you're going to be up on cards. And if you can sacrifice your, oh my goodness, I'm terrible at remembering card names. What's the 1/1 that when it dies, it gives something -1 or you make a treasure?
Yeah. Yes.
Eye Twitch as well. Yeah, absolutely. So there's good fodder. Yep. There's really good fodder.
Shambling Ghast?
Shambling Ghast, yeah. So as the games go on, mm-hmm. those cards, just become kind of worse and worse, and you want to just sacrifice them to, draw cards and make a treasure off the black card draw spell. And again, oh my gosh, cannot remember card names tonight. Or Fell Stinger, just extra card draw in those decks, and this one comes with a really, really relevant body as well. And just might, like you said, critical mass, and this goes a long way to doing that. And sweet art, by the way, as well.
It's pretty great. So why do I
actually
feel
the
like
art in this set is just awesome?
Why do I feel like this one comes with a personal challenge to you of being able to exploit, target your opponent, kill them with a Sign in Blood? I know you've done that.
Win an F in it.
I know, I know you have.
I've done it multiple times, actually. Yeah. So I'm down for it.
In limited.
I'll try and do it on stream. That's going to be my challenge. All right. So I'm going to put myself in awful decisions, make incorrect plays just to leave my opponent on 2.
Yep, perfect.
Just so I can do this, and then they're going to overcharge the amalgam, and I'm going to die. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's. I think this card's pretty good. I will first pick this in in draft, like without even really looking at the rest of the pack. I think,
Mm-hmm.
like I think this is in limited. This thing's a powerhouse, and I think the sacrifice based strategies that already exist will adopt this really easily and take that into into some number in their in those lists as well. So yeah.
All right. So the next card I've got to chat about, Olivia Crimson Bride. Can't talk about a set about a wedding for Olivia without talking about the bride herself. And she is 4...
We already talked about a bride. Oh, a braid. Right. Sorry. Yeah. Yes. So Olivia, what does Olivia do?
Yeah, she's 4 black and red for a legendary creature vampire noble. She is a 3/4 with flying and haste. It says, whenever Olivia Crimson Bride attacks, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, tapped and attacking. It gains when you don't control a legendary vampire, exile this creature. So, if you want to cheat a overcharged amalgam in for 1 mana less, here's how you do it. Look,
yeah.
I don't know about the stat line on Olivia, and I don't know whether we've got anything busted enough that we're buying back is the problem. So
it's a really powerful effect.
It really is.
And it can come out of nowhere. She has haste, right?
She does, yeah, flying and haste.
Yeah, so...
And it's repeatable. I guess that's the other thing. Like, if she goes unchecked, if you get a couple of, you're pretty much set. But when she dies, or if you don't... And it's not actually just when Olivia dies, it's if you don't control a legendary vampire. So if you've got something else in play... Anje or Anye or however you pronounce that one, there's a couple of others kicking around in these colours that, will let you keep those creatures around. But otherwise, when you've got no more legendary vamps, everything is gone.
So, rules question. If I go back into historic and I'm trying to do reanimating things, Dracutheth doesn't trigger because it's already attacking?
Correct.
Okay, that's disappointing.
Yeah, you do miss the attack triggers because it's tapped and attacking.
Yeah, okay. So it's really powerful. Like you said, I don't know if it's quite there. Like, it's a bit too expensive.
Yep.
It's a bit small of a body.
Yep.
And it might not have the targets for things worthy of reanimating. But at the very least, something worth keeping an eye on, and whether there's other reanimation spells and things like that. And maybe if there's a red black vampires deck, maybe you just want it as a one-off, just as a big finisher, and you can bring in something enormous,
just use it as a fireball kind of thing, just to bring back a lord or something like that, and getting those last few points. Maybe I think you want to just be lower on the curve with the vampires deck, honestly.
Yeah, probably.
And look, they've been pretty careful with this one, and it shows. Like that.
Yeah.
Everything is just turned down a little bit from where you would want it to be as like a busted card, but they've clearly made this not a busted card from so far at the moment. I think, which is fine. That's okay.
Yeah. Something that I guess maybe would get played in that deck, or is probably useful against it, is there's an upgrade here, which Flame Blessed Bolt, which is 1 red for an instant. It's an upgrade to the Magma Spray that gets played in Historic, and sometimes even makes its way into Modern. So Flame Blessed Bolt deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If that creature planeswalker would die this turn, exile it instead. So it hits more stuff than Magma Spray, but basically does the same thing outside of that. So very close to a reprint, but just that little bit of flexibility. So the planeswalker thing, not super relevant most of the time, although Blood on the Snow exists. So the Lolth, the green-black or mono-black decks that you tend to run into on ladder that have Lolth and Blood in the Snow,
and Professor Onyx as well is usually kicking around in those decks.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a for a red aggressive deck, it's a nice nice sort of boon for that. So not again, unassuming, not overly exciting, decent limited card, because it's a shock, but just be aware of this one when you're putting your sideboards together if you've got mountains in your deck, because this could definitely have a home in that. So a bit of a role player.
Yeah, for sure.
And maybe it gets played with Chandra Dressed to Kill, who's a 1 and 2 red for a planeswalker that won't get too much into it, but she upticks to hit to deal 1 damage and out of red.
Mm-hmm.
So you can play her on turn 3 and potentially kill 2 of their creatures. So or a 3/3 with Flame Blessed Bolt plus Chandra's ability. So that's those sort of things exist, and I don't mind it. So good card to have around.
Yeah, for sure. So there's, I don't know if you guys talked about it last time. I don't think we'd seen all of them. There's a cycle of mythics, which is the Cemetery cycle. I guess is probably the
one
way.
in each color, right?
There is. I don't know if any of them are any good. The green one's probably the best one. It's 1 green for a 3/4 wolf with vigilance, and when it ETBs or attacks, exile a card from a graveyard, and then spells you cast cost 1 less for each card type they share with cards exiled with Cemetery Prowler. So, we're talking about, flashback spells or, like reanimating creatures. So it enters the battlefield, has an immediate effect, you get to exile something, and then, your creature next turn costs 1 generic less. So it doesn't stack. You can't, exile 2 creatures and get a discount of, 2 further creatures. That doesn't work like that. But if you had, like an artifact creature, for example, we're talking about the Brothers' War coming up, you'd exile an artifact or a creature, or, if you hit an artifact creature, then, you get discounts on both of those. So definitely some things there to look out for.
Yeah, I think these...
But they're all, I don't know why they're mythics.
Yeah,
they don't feel
I don't
very
think
mythic.
they need to be.
Kind of like the last cycle as well, which I've gone blank on.
Yeah, the ones that you can, when they come into play, you can pay the extra mana and they do a thing. Yeah. So I think these are all good cards, and maybe they'll shift it to Mythic because they'd all be pretty busted in Limited, maybe. I'm not sure. But the red one is pretty good. It's a 1 and a red 2/1 with First Strike.
Mm-hmm.
Has the exile thing from the graveyard clause, and when a player plays a land or casts a spell, if it shares a card type, it does 2 damage to that player. Ankh of Mishra, Zozu the Punisher.
Zozu, yeah.
Yeah, right. So this card is pretty good, but there's no evolving wild. Oh, sorry, there's evolving wilds, but there's no other sort of fetch land type things in standard at the moment. So unless people are doing some mill stuff, or you're backing it up with some, mind rot effects where people might discard a land. And so, a really powerful effect, perhaps not right there at the moment. And the blue one's all right. There's some good spirits.
Yeah, they're all kind of medium, I think, is probably...
Yeah. None of them are I'm building a deck around this.
No.
But they, I think they might all, maybe sideboard play, I don't know, but yeah. Almost. Anyway, yeah. They're worthy of note.
Yeah, look, obviously there's a lot of cards. I think that this set is going to have a pretty good shake-up, actually. I think it's going to move things around a bit. I think the best card in the set is Storm Carved Coast, which is the blue-red dual land, because, is it needed better mana?
Yeah, I don't know.
I like that they have finished this cycle immediately.
Yeah.
I think these are really good dual lands to have, and
they're a really good standard power level. I think they're good, and having the cycle of them is great. I I don't know how good the blue-red one actually is.
I mean, it's
honestly.
a lot better than a snarl.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
You're not doing too much on turn 1 anyway. So, yeah, in the sort of mid-range and controller decks, they're pretty good. You know, the red-white one, if you're trying to be aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't... I think they're good in pretty much... If you have those colours, you'll just be playing a number of these. Because, you know...
In the Gruul deck that... I've been playing a bunch of with some success is I'm playing 2 only.
Sure, right.
So, and like Depraz at Worlds with his blue splash was playing like 0
sure.
of the red-green one. Because you've got, it's tough. It's a balance. But like 2 feels good in that deck. Maybe the blue-red deck wants more. Because I haven't seen a blue-red deck that's playing a full complement of, like a full playset of the Snarls. So
no, that's
if it's just
horrible.
a straight yeah. But even if these are only a 3 of with the the double face cards and things like that, it is an improvement, absolutely.
For sure.
But yeah. Cool.
All right. So let us know what you got in mind. Let us know what you're brewing, what kind of tickles your fancy. We've been seeing people talking about things for a while in the new set preview kind of discussion channel, which is always great to see kind of people's takes on cards as they get released. But now you've got the whole thing, there's some context. I expect there'll be a lot of folks jamming Arena on all the various streaming platforms and things. So, over the next few days, let others spend their wildcards first is definitely...
If only we had the early access event.
I remember those. They were fun. They were fun to bait people into spending wildcards on decks that were not good. I still haven't forgiven you, Matt Nass. Anyway, so I guess what do you see? Do we think that Epiphany has still the best top end out of anything, right? I think that's kind of just undisputable. As far as the going biggest, it has the best late game.
It's
out
undisputable
of
because Mystic Dispute rotated, mate. But
correct.
It's a... Yeah, I think it's the best going, but, there's more werewolves.
I'm not saying it's the best deck. I'm just saying as far as, if you want to categorize things, I think it's the... Yeah. Look, there's a pretty strong argument to say that, either is it Dragons or is it Epiphany or however you want to, distinguish
Epiphany
those.
Epiphany X, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the best mid-range control strategy. The white aggressive deck gets points to battle that.
Mm-hmm.
There's more... there's another, Mythic Dragon. There's more werewolves. So, there may be some improvements to the tribal decks.
Mm-hmm.
Vampires is a completely unknown quantity. I haven't really started brewing on that. It might be just hot garbage, but there might actually be a viable red-black vampire aggressive deck, aggro disruption. The sacrifice decks have got a few new tools as well, and they can be disruptive with, hand disruption and such. We might see some new combos with, some reanimation shenanigans. And, if I've gone into the depths of standard to try to make something with the whole breaker horror, and I can see times where someone's going to try to cast an Epiphany. I'll be like, return that to your hand, bash for 7.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't think it's going to be a massive shake-up, as in what used to be the best deck is no longer the best deck, but I think it creates a lot more diversity, this set. So there's enough powerful cards that will spawn some new archetypes, that will bring new archetypes to, higher in the tier list than what they have been, but also some new toys and some bumps, as in bumps in power for the existing staples as well. So
yeah, it's tricky because you're right. There's kind of a good spread across like a number of the different decks. But also, if you want to view like the Izzet decks as like the boogeyman of the format, then they picked up a bunch of tools as well. Like Syncopate and Abrade and some better mana, and like there's a few different things there that just kind of bolstered that kind of archetype as well. So I think look, standards
diversity,
standards getting bigger again.
Yeah.
And we're going to see the power level increasing like we always do. Like this is just a thing. This is a pretty good set as far as power level, I feel. Nothing's like immediately.
I'm pretty stoked. I pre-ordered a set.
Yeah.
A box, actually. Yeah. I'm pretty stoked with that.
Yeah, no, there's definitely some really good cards in there. So, be interesting to see. I'm certainly, like, it feels like there's enough here to make it kind of fun to dig into again. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yo, get the juices flowing, mate. That's awesome. So, I enjoy standards like that where, things aren't solved right away. You can kind of get things up and running, but yeah, it's
or they're clearly defined enough that you can target them. I think that's the other thing. Like if you go, Epiphany is the single best deck. I'm not saying that's what it is, but if that's the case, then it gives you the tools to go, all right, well, how do I beat that? What is the metagame choice to get under that or to interact with that? And I think we're kind of getting there as far as the tools now to let us, have some more choices there without necessarily being pigeoned into having to play blue. What's that?
Our Envy is in a couple of weeks.
Sure is.
And all of our... Yeah. Mm-hmm. So all of our Envy players are going to be like hardcore brewing, and it's going to be a lot of fun to, have those conversations with them and, maybe help them play test or whatever, just help them, brew those decks where they think they might be able to take down the 2021 Invitational. So new standard, it's a shame it's not closer, because remember when Pro Tours came out like 2 weeks after the set was released and everything was, shiny and new. It feels like a little bit like that, where we've got, our best players from across the year all brewing and are going to battle off against each other with the new cards. So
really, we are only a couple of weeks out. It actually is it's the 27th, right?
Yeah, it is only 2 weeks. We're doing it.
2 weeks, we're doing it.
Who needs Pro Tours when you got the Magic Beans? Come on, people, let's go. Yeah,
and the prize pool isn't quite PT level, but mate, every time Shorty puts something in our chat, it's like, oh, we've got some more stuff for the prizes, and it's just like we're well over like $3,000 worth of total prizes for this event, which is pretty insane. And
it is crazy, and like free to enter, right? Yeah. And for our Envy competitors, they've already gotten value throughout the year because they've done consistently well and would have picked up some prizes. Maybe what we can do is for Envy coverage, and we can see how much they've earned from us over the maybe J Mud and I will go back and
I like that idea.
It's not bad. Then they're going to be pretty high EV. So there's 12 players in 2 weeks' time. We'll stream it. It's going to be huge. And $3,000 worth of prizes. And Shorty did get a delivery from our sponsor, Josh and Pat MTG Bazaar today. And there is some epic stuff to give away on stream. So you can come and watch us do coverage of the Envy new standard, the best players from the year that was, from all of the Beans events. So if the league finals or even just the groups of death that we've had along the way are any indication that we're going to see some pretty highbrow magic, and all you need to do is just tune in, watch that, and just get free stuff, because we're just going to give away a bunch of stuff, and I'm talking like collector booster level stuff on stream. So
come hang out.
It's absolutely amazing. So it's the 27th of November. It's a Saturday. It'll probably start about 10 a.m. But yeah, keep an eye on our socials and our Discord, which there'll be a link to the Discord in the show notes. If you're hearing this for the first time and you want in. So yeah, pretty exciting.
Yeah, very, very cool. Really looking forward to that one for sure. I think that's going to do it for this week. Just the usual kind of things. If you want to support us directly, we have a merch store. You can go and buy some sweet playmats or mugs or hoodies, all that kind of stuff. Otherwise, you can find us directly everywhere. We're Magic Beans Cast, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter. We're kind of, we're trying to build a bit of a presence out there. We're not great at that, but it's on the list of things to get better at. So, give us a kick and come, give us a follow, and that'll help us try and engage with you in as many different ways as we can. Otherwise, if you would like to chat with me directly, best place is Discord. But if you want to follow me on Twitter, I am at JoelHill_. And Chewy, you are
at ChewyMTG.
Send us your lists and we will drool over them with you, and we'll talk to you very soon. Cheers, everyone.